I'm Richie Suave Flores.
And I'm Cori Crenshaw.
And this is Sporty with Cori and Richie Suave.
Floater, center field. The Diamondbacks are world champions.
Down is the motion man. Little flip to Fitzgerald. He scores. And the Cardinals win an amazing game.
Mikhail Bucker with a chance. He walks in. He scores. Mikhail Bucker for the second straight game is the hero.
Welcome in, Sporty Nation. We are now on episode 17. We are so excited. We're almost to 20. We're getting there slowly but surely. I know it has been a very rough couple of weeks for all of you Arizona fans out there and all of the Arizona sports, because it is, let's just admit it, it's been pretty rough in a lot of situations. I mean, 11 consecutive losses for the Coyotes. So, you know, that is tying a record. And at least I told Richie or Scotty or someone, I told somebody out there. But if we beat that record, at least they're number one in something.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. Yeah,
yes.
It's I would like to sum up the last week and a half or so for Arizona sports fans pretty simply. It's a shit show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple. Suns fire Earl Watson 3 games into the season. Didn't mention that. Jay Triano takes over. Arizona Cardinals lose Carson Palmer, most likely for the rest of the season.
And you also,
broken arm.
With the Suns, you have to mention the "I don't want to be here" debacle.
Oh, yes, Eric Bledsoe. That's a mess. He's never going to play in the Suns uniform again. The Suns looking to trade him. Good point. Of course, the Coyotes being 0-10-1. ASU football shitting the bed against USC, which means Todd Graham probably needs to go. Let's hop on that high horse again. Just kidding. We're not going to talk about that again.
No, we won't talk about that one again. But yeah, there's been a lot of things to be sad about as a fan of any Arizona team here. So we're here to try and cheer you up. I mean, we're going to be talking about the Coyotes in the beginning, the first 2 segments here. So that will be a little bit depressing, but at least we can break it down and we can try and have some conversations, because I feel like, especially since they've been bad, that people have been laying off coverage on them. And I don't think that's the direction we should be going. I definitely think we should be going in the direction of figuring out what's wrong and what the team should be doing moving forward. You know, don't give up on the team just yet. And then we will also be talking about one bright light that we'll be kind of dragging back in, which is JD Martinez, and talking about him because we never really got to during the season. It got so chaotic and so many things were going on that we never really had the chance to give him what he had due.
Plus, don't forget Cori's Corner and Dick of the Week as well. But first, Cori, we are now joined by a good friend of the show, Kathryn Silverman. She writes for The Athletic and Ingle magazine to talk Arizona Coyotes goaltending.
Yes, Richie, we are super excited today to have literally one of our best friends coming on the show with us, and a goaltender extraordinaire. She knows everything that we don't know. This is where we get our information from. So we're super excited to have Kat Silverman on today.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
We are doing terrific. Thanks for coming on. We've been wanting you to come on the show for a long time, so I'm happy that we finally found some time to chat with you.
I'm happy that we've got some fun stuff to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a busy last 48 hours for the Coyotes in terms of their goaltending situation. So let's begin with kind of the big news, which is the fact that Louis Domingue has been put on waivers. So let's ask you this question first, Kat. Have we seen the last of Louis Domingue in an Arizona Coyotes uniform?
Your guess is as good as mine. The Vegas Golden Knights obviously have 2 serious injuries on their roster right now. Their starter, Marc-Andre Fleury, their backup, Malcolm Subban, who is out for the foreseeable future. Fleury's out with a concussion. They're not really giving any indication on when he's going to be back, and rightly so. They traded away their other backup, Calvin Pickard, pretty much the day that they picked up Subban. So they're down to Oscar Dansk, who still has a lot of work that he needs in his game, and I believe Maxime Legasque is their second goaltender, and they pretty much don't have anything beyond that. They're to the point where they had an overflow of goaltenders in the AHL, which they're sharing a team with the St. Louis Blues. They actually had to pick up another goaltender from another team, and I forget exactly who it was, but they had someone come in on loan from another AHL team just to fill that hole at the AHL level because they have so many guys being called up. So they could pick up Domingue feasibly if they wanted to. I know that the Edmonton Oilers have been having issues with Cam Talbot's play on and off. He's playing well, then he's not playing well. We could also maybe see the Montreal Canadiens. Obviously, Carey Price is having a very poor start to his season. He's frustrated with the team, as he should be. Mike Condon has never, not Mike Condon, Al Montoya has never really taken on a long-term role. I don't know what Montreal's doing right now, so they could always pick him up. New York Rangers, same situation. Henrik Lundqvist, poor start to the season behind a poor defense. Andre Pavlik isn't really a solution for them. They could pick up Domingue, hoping that just a change of scenery is all that he needs. If you look back on Domingue's numbers throughout the past few years, he starts off slow. Once he hits probably about 10 or 11 games into his playing season, he plays remarkably well. So one of these teams could take a gamble on he's about to turn the corner on his season. If we bring him in, we might finally get that tail end of his poor season, start getting the good numbers. We'll have a good goaltender on our hands. They could also, nobody could pick him up. Vegas could take their chances with who they have right now. They've certainly been putting up the wins, if not the statistical and the technical excellence that they need in net. And then the Coyotes would just have him at the AHL level, or they could keep him as a third goaltender rotating in and out. Obviously, they do have a roster issue there. As we saw today, they put Antti Ranta on injured reserve, retroactive to, I think it was like October 5th or something. They basically did that so that Domingue, Wedgwood, and Ranta can all be on their roster space-wise. And then as soon as they figure out what's going on with Domingue, they can take Ranta off, activate him. He's healthy. He can start playing. But they obviously don't have the space right now, so I don't know whether they'll send him down to the AHL, maybe give him some ECHL time if they really don't know what to do. But it's kind of 50-50. With goaltenders, it's always hard to tell exactly how the league's going to address something like that.
One more thing, too, on Domingue before we move on. For our listeners out there who don't really understand the goalie position, there are a lot of us out there. I am included in that. I feel weird trying to break down a goalie. It's one of those positions that's kind of like beyond me in a way because I've never done it. But from what you've seen, what are some of the issues that he's having this season? Because his numbers are god-awful. This team in general is, as far as the Coyotes are concerned, probably the worst goaltending in the entire league. So what has gone wrong for the Arizona Coyotes goaltending-wise this season?
It's hard to fully pinpoint because we've seen Domingue play well. So it's not like I'm looking at him and I say, he's tracking players instead of pucks. He's playing way too deep in his net. He's coming out to challenge too often. It could be a mental thing right now. He may just be a little bit off on his tracking to positioning, reaction timing, which would set him a couple inches off from the shot. His post coverage has looked kind of weak. I don't know if that's because he's not mentally setting himself correctly or if his technique has sort of fallen by the wayside over the summer. So it's hard to specifically pinpoint that kind of thing, but his post coverage hasn't looked great. We've seen some of those wraparound shots go in. His recovery on a rebound. We hear people say, this goaltender has awful rebound control. Every goaltender allows rebounds. It's what they do afterwards that is the poor rebound control. And with him, it's his recovery afterwards. We're seeing him, instead of covering a puck, holding for the whistle, he's allowing the puck to be released back into play, and then he's not getting back up and getting centered to where the puck went nearly as quickly as he should be. So the puck's able to, just go straight into the net. That's frustrating to watch. He's not really coming out of his crease too often. He's not playing the puck too aggressively. He's not playing as deep as Mike Smith we used to, which, as Coyotes fans, are all too familiar with. He used to get burned on pretty regularly. So I think it may just be a mental thing right now, and that may be why at the start of each season he starts off so poorly. It may just be the mental recovery and setting for the season. But obviously when it comes to that kind of thing, the goaltender's mental preparedness, as the onlooker, you can't concretely speak to that because we don't specifically know what his focus is. We don't know where he's lapsing in that. So I can't say, oh, his focus is way off. He's not paying attention. That's unfair to him. But that would be my guess.
Obviously, we've seen this season that it's not only the goaltending, but also the defense that the Coyotes have that is really brutal, to be honest with you, and pretty lackluster. So do you think when Raanta comes in, he's going to be able to help in not let in these goals? Because some of them are not particularly the goaltender's fault. It's the fact that multiple people actually are getting walked. And I am wondering if Raanta coming in, and even if he's playing at his very best, if he's going to be able to hold off some of those goals that aren't really his fault.
Obviously, he's going to be coming back from an injury. So if he's not 100%, back to where he was, even if he's recovered from the injury but isn't back to the conditioning level that he had been, this could change. But if he's back to the way he was at the end of last season, I say absolutely yes. Because if you look back, the New York Rangers, and we're seeing it this year when, Henrik Lundqvist is at about 80%, just technique-wise, he's getting destroyed. Their defense looks similar to how it did last year. Their defense was incredibly poor. They were allowing an incredibly high number of breakaway shots. They were allowing an incredibly high number of rebound second and third shots. Their numbers were actually closer to the Coyotes than they were to the better teams around the league. So Raanta's used to that. It's not like he's going to come in and just be overwhelmed by this terrible defense when he's used to playing behind greatness. I mean, he's used to playing behind Dan Girardi. There's not a lot there that he's going to be seeing an improvement on. He may have some trouble if he's trying to get back into the conditioning side of things, if the team's not letting him, like if they're continuing to let him get shelled by shots. But we're not seeing the team allow as many shots this year as we did last year. We're seeing some ugly shots, but we're not seeing as many. So there's a chance that Raanta is going to do just fine, and there's a chance that if we get to see Wedgwood, that he's going to do just fine as well. So.
Do you have any opinions on Wedgwood? I know it's all of his stuff has been really mostly, other than with like the Devils, has been recently AHL stuff.
So I'd seen a few of his games in the past, and I wanted a slightly better opinion on it. So I went ahead and called one of my buddies who he's a big Devils fan. He grew up playing hockey. He grew up around the Devils. I said, what do you know about Wedgwood? And his response to me was, I liked him. I thought he could be an excellent NHL backup, potentially a 1B goaltender. He was unfortunately third in line behind Keith Kincaid and Corey Schneider. And Kincaid and Schneider have worked very well together, so the Devils haven't wanted to mess with a good thing. So unfortunately, Wedgwood has been stuck in the AHL, not because he's not good enough, but just because there hasn't been room for him. So he's a little disappointed, actually, that the Devils only got a fifth-round pick for him. He would have been willing to give a higher pick. And, that's obviously the Coyotes were in need. There's, the Devils maybe could have gotten a higher pick. I don't know. But he liked him. He was high on him. I watched a couple of his NHL games from last year, or I think it was maybe 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago. He played 4 games with the Devils. They were at some of their defensively worst. They didn't really have a strong team behind them. He looked efficient. He looked poised. His tracking was excellent. He tracked the shot right into his pad, right into his glove, watched the shots, the rebounds going right back out, set himself centered to it. If Coyotes fans want a good comparable for the sample size that I saw of Wedgwood, he looks like Corey Crawford. Plays a very similar style to Corey Crawford. So if people want to look back at that, see what some of the tendencies are there, that hopefully it'll be reassuring for them. I think that he could be a very, very good addition for the Coyotes. He obviously hasn't gotten a ton of playing time because the Devils have such a deep goaltending depth chart. They have two young guys that just came in that are now competing with him for the AHL crease, which is why he was allowed to go via trade. But they have a great goaltending coach there in New Jersey. They added another one this year. I'm sure that he spent some time talking and working with Wedgwood. So if there was a goaltender to bring in on the cheap, I think this is a very good one for the Coyotes to have done.
So we have two more questions for you, Kat, before we let you get back to your beautiful daughter. Starting with Hunter Miska, which was the other big news that the Coyotes dropped on Sunday, as he, at least temporarily, is now with the Arizona Coyotes. Do you see him sticking around for a long term, or is he going to be back in the AHL soon? And what do you know about him? And is he kind of one of those guys that could be the future of the Arizona Coyotes in goal if Raanta, for whatever reason, doesn't work out?
So I don't want Hunter to somehow hear this and get upset that I'm saying this because I think he's very good. No, I don't think he's sticking around long term, at least right now. He's coming off his one and only NCAA season. He signed pro after his first year. And for family reasons, his dad actually was diagnosed with cancer last year. Through his playoffs, he stood on his head, made it to the NCAA championships, obviously lost to the Denver Pioneers, but played fantastic. All the time his dad was battling cancer. He decided that he wanted to just go ahead and go pro, see what he could do, signed with the Coyotes, really liked the organization's opportunities, the way that they talked about him, the way that they'd watched him. His dad is now in remission, which is fantastic news. I don't think that he needs to be up. I think he still needs more development time. He could be the goaltender of the future for the team. I like him. I like Hill. I think that Merrick Madsen, who's with Harvard right now, I think he's a fantastic option as well. So that may be why they haven't signed Raanta to anything long-term. They may be seeing, how ready those guys look. But my belief is that they called up Miska so that Hill can get some playing time in the AHL. And if they need an extra day for Raanta, they'll let Wedgwood play for a game. If Raanta is ready, they'll send Miska back down. I don't think that he is necessarily ready for an NHL start, the same way that Hill was. I mean, Hill's first game couldn't have gone better from a stylistic standpoint. He did really well. He was mentally prepared. He came back from a shaky first goal, played strong through the rest of it, but still has development that he needs to work on, and playing behind that kind of defense doesn't help him in any way. So I think with Miska, it's the same situation. So maybe we'll see him. Ideally, we don't for a little while, hopefully until next year. But he could be, a long-term option. He's a calm goaltender. He's poised. He works on his tracking a ton over the summer. I know his summer goalie coach, great guy, really emphasizes tracking and mental preparedness. He's constantly working on improving his technique, listening to other goaltending coaches to see, what he can add to his game. He's a fantastic addition, if even from just the mental side of things. But no, I don't think we should have him at the NHL level right now.
Last question. And since we've gone through so much on goaltending, I really wanted to get one other thing from you, considering the fact of how much you've been around the Coyotes, is what do you feel about this team coming through the rest of the season, considering the fact that they now have lost 11 consecutive games, and that is tied for number one on that record. So, where do you think this team is going to go for the rest of this season?
Ideally not 81-1.
Like I was telling everyone earlier, hey, at least they're number one in something.
Right. No, they're number one in something else too, and that's kind of unfortunately going by the wayside, but they're currently number one in rookie scoring from a single player. Clayton Keller is tearing it up. He has over a point per game on a team that has yet to win a game, which to me is a little bit terrifying. He's on pace for over 80 points. My guess is that's probably going to regress, but we could feasibly see him top 60 points, maybe even 70 if he continues to play well on a team that doesn't make the playoffs. And, if you talk to people, obviously every time they lose a game, it gets more frustrating, especially because they're scoring first and then petering out at the end, which is a huge glaring neon sign that they're a young team, but they're exciting to watch. You guys, I mean, Cori, you've sat up in the press box with me for how many years now? And Richie, you've been watching games. How many games over the last few years did we feel disappointed about within the first 10 minutes? Because 10 minutes would go by and they wouldn't record a shot on goal. Now 10 minutes are going by and they're scoring their first goal. So I don't know if they're going to make it out of 31st in the league. They may, once they finally put it together, I think they're going to be kind of scary. They definitely look like they have more direction than Montreal. They have more direction than New York. They have more direction than Vancouver. They're just not putting it together through the last 10 minutes of the game, which is driving everyone crazy. But they're exciting to watch, and hopefully they'll start winning some of those games so the losses aren't quite as painful. And I think hopefully we're going to get a lot of fun from Clayton Keller. We're going to get fun from Ronta once he comes in. We're going to get fun from Chychrun once he's healthy again. And then we're going to possibly see the playoffs next year if they can finally put it together. Because right now they look like a good team until the last 10 minutes. Then they look like a terrible team.
At least here's my glowing thing before we let you go, which is I just love seeing Tobias Reeder smile. Oh, that's all I need. That's all I need in my life, and I'll be happy. Even if the team
I'm
is
over
losing.
here thinking we could be the worst team in the NHL and still not get a good place in the lottery, and you're over here going Tobias Reeder once again.
Him or Rasmus Dahlin, who's probably going to be the number 1 overall pick next year. But Kat, thank you so much for talking with us on this episode of the show. Before we let you go, where can our listeners and our watchers and the Sporty Nation, where can they find your work, and then where can they find you on Twitter, social media, all that good stuff?
So you can find me at The Athletic if you've subscribed to that. I do a weekly goaltending column for the Blackhawks this year, ironically enough. It's called Behind the Save. I cover Cori, Crawford, and then a lot of their prospects. But I also do work with some of the other teams around the league. I've looked at the Leafs. I've looked at San Jose. I've got a couple other teams coming up. You can find my work for the league at large at In Goal Magazine. That's In Goal Media on Twitter. And then you can find me on Twitter at Cat CATM Silverman, SILVERMAN. And I'm sorry I won't be giving them as much Coyotes work this year, but I'll try and get in some fun stuff on them for In Goal this year.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, Kat. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much to Kat for joining us on this episode of the show. But first, let's take a jaunt into Cori's Corner.
All right, everybody. Welcome into my Cori's Corner of the week. And it's going to be a little bit harsh, and I know you're not really going to want to hear it, but come on, Arizona fans. We don't need to have any more fair weather fans. There's enough people who are fans of different teams within this state, and the fact that there can't be any more loyal fans that are becoming fair weather fans. I understand it's really hard right now, but sometimes you have to go through the rough times to go through the good times. How do you really know the excitement of having something good happen when you don't have anything bad happening? So at least at this very bottom level, it can't get much worse. It can only go up from here. So come on, fans, rally with your teams, and please just start becoming real fans. I can't tell you how much it annoys me to know that Arizona has such a huge market when you calculate it up against the rest of the country, and yet there are not enough loyal fans here. Each team is having problems ticket-wise and all sorts of that stuff with people showing up to games because of the fact that there's so many fair weather fans in this state, and I cannot handle it. So everyone rally together and become the fans that each of these teams deserve, and maybe then they'll start playing better because you are actually rallying behind them as opposed to just leaving them when they're down. Don't be that friend. Don't be that person that goes, oh, well, when you're up, I will be around, but when you're down, I'm not going to help lift you up, because that is not fair, and you're not being a good friend or a good fan. So please, Sporty Nation, be the fans that I know you really are. Get together, go out to those games, and support those teams, and try and affect that change that needs to happen for this state to be one of the best sports states in the nation. Thank you so much for coming to my corner.
All right, so we teased it at the top of the show. It's been a while since we've actually touched on this again. We want to get back into it as we get closer to free agency and the World Series wrapping up, which is JD Martinez and his free agency, and is he going to come back to the Arizona Diamondbacks for 2018 and beyond? So let's update the people on what's going on. I have a couple of different reports real quick. From Nick Cafardo, the Boston Globe, Arizona will do everything within its means to re-sign Martinez, and the feeling is he wants to stay there. Those who know him aren't necessarily sold on Martinez going to a big market team and being the man. That he'd be more comfortable in a secondary market. So that's the latest from Nick Cafardo. So I'm hoping that's the case, that mutually, and it obviously worked for him to return.
Yeah, I'm really kind of hoping that it's the case that because, I mean, once he left Detroit, he did not want to leave Detroit at all. And then once he got here and he started meshing with all of the guys, he said it's some of the most fun on a team that he's had ever. So the fact that he really enjoys being on this team, and the fact that he is 100% committed to it when he is getting into a situation where he played so well with the Diamondbacks. I mean, he batted a 302, an OPS of 1.107, finished third on the team for player position, batting WAR, and then he had 18 RBIs and only 55 at bats. Like, he was doing so well with the Diamondbacks that there's so many different teams that want him.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that he is announcing that he would like to stay with the Diamondbacks says a ton about the team and the team's chemistry. And I think that is one of the things that this team has kicked ass in all year, is the fact that soon as Cori came in, they are really having fun and they're enjoying being there every day. And I think that's kind of a difference, is wanting to come to the ballpark and play makes a difference. And the fact that he's around that and around people like Lamb and Goldie and AJ, and it's not just him. All the focus isn't on him, and it's not all the pressure's not on him. There's a bunch of supporting system around him, and he is just like the little cherry on top. And I think he really, like you had said in that quote, really enjoys being that person. Yeah. So I think, it's going to be tough because there's going to be a lot of money floating around and money talks, and it's going to be hard for the Diamondbacks to put up the money that they need to without getting rid of someone like Yasmani Tomas. Yeah. But, because he's getting insanely overpaid. But it's going to be hard for them to compete with all the different places that are doing, throwing money at him. But I think the fact that he feels so comfortable on this team and he thoroughly enjoys his team is going to help him and help the Diamondbacks try and get him back immensely.
I think the thing that's the biggest kind of wrench in this is how much he's going to get paid. So, I mean, you and I kind of both looked at the main, outfielder contracts in terms of where he's at. He's not going to make Giancarlo Stanton money. That's a $30 million contract. Jason Hayward, maybe. He's a little bit older than Jason Hayward was at the time. But Matt Kemp, obviously, on that list as well. But I think a contract that's very similar to where we might be able to see him is Justin Upton. Puts up similar numbers, a slugger, a guy who can hit 25 to 30 homers a year, driving close to 100 runs, as he did this season. Had a great season with Detroit and LA. 6 years, $132 million. That's about a little bit over $20 million a year. And I think that's kind of a similar contract. If I'm JD Martinez, I'm telling my agent that's the contract I want. And if I'm the Diamondbacks, it's the length to me that is going to be the most interesting, because remember, he's on the wrong side of 30 years old. Just like Zach Greinke was on the wrong side of 30 years old when he signed his contract, it's basically on the down curve of his career. So I think they need to be careful in terms of the length. So I've been saying this for a while. I'd be 100% okay kind of bridging the gap and saying, listen, we'll pay you the $22, $23 million a year, but you have to do it short term and you can only do it for 2 years. And what that will do is you can pay him the money for the 2 years. You can keep Paul Goldschmidt on his contract through 2018 and 2019. And then once JD's contract comes off the books after those 2 years, that money goes straight into Paul Goldschmidt.
You really think that after the season he's had, that he's going to slowly decline.
Oh, yeah. It's just age.
But he's not a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. He's a professional baseball player. I understand that, that once you get to a certain age, you start kind of declining. But the fact that, like, the good ones are the good ones. A lot of times, even as they age, they still do well. And it's kind of like, I would probably, I know someone's going to get mad at me for making this, like, comparison, but how old's Tom Brady?
40.
He's had still
winning Super Bowls.
Some of the best seasons of his career on the other side of 30. It's all depending on how much conditioning and how much you want to put into being the best in your sport. Because as long as you stay in good shape, like you're constantly conditioning, you're not taking off seasons for granted, you're eating healthy, that counts a lot, I think, in all of that. So, I mean, I wouldn't be mad if they gave him some more years because of the fact that they don't have as much money, just to give him that stability. I mean, we have to wager with something.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is there's not enough money to wager, so maybe they can wager with time. I mean, they have the fact that he wants to stay here in Arizona on their side.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they need something to sweeten the deal, because there's going to be people that are giving him
I agree, because
contracts
somebody's probably going to give him that Justin Upton money. And that's almost guaranteed that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's just, and the Diamondbacks probably can't keep up with that if they're only offering him the 2 years, $23 million. But that's just what I'm comfortable giving him, especially for a team that is built to win, I think, in the next, 2 or 3 seasons, because you don't know what's going to happen with Goldschmidt. You don't know what's going to happen with AJ Pollock. Zach Greinke's only going to get older in his contract. And, that's something that, depending on how next year goes and how he pitches, they have to move at some point. They can't keep his $35 million salary on the books and expect to retain some of these other guys. And that's the thing that Buster Olney from ESPN brought up, is that, Greinke's contract of $138 million in the next 4 years. And
Greinke has not been producing like we nearly thought he would coming in.
Yeah, he struggled down the stretch for sure. Absolutely. And then, of course, Paul Goldschmidt's contract, he will be eligible for free agency after the 2019 season, which is why I kind of mentioned that 2-year deal to kind of bridge the gap between the two. He also mentions that they're going to need some money for a closer, or at least another back end of the bullpen arm, because Fernando Rodney's probably not coming back.
Well, that's the biggest problem, is the fact that they're bringing in these people and they're not showing up. Like, that's the biggest problem I've had, is that you bring in people like Shelby Miller, Zach Greinke, Fernando Rodney, pitching especially wise. And I mean, there's Yasmani Tomas. He never really showed up either on, like, batting wise, because obviously it wasn't his defense that they brought him in for. And that's the problem I'm having, is all these people that they come in, they give them big ass contracts and they don't show up.
Yeah.
You're getting paid all the money, but you're
Tomas, like you said, that's the biggest thing in this. That's just
biggest
hurting everything. Yeah, absolutely. So quickly, we're going to wrap this up and then we'll get to my dicks of the week. That's right. Dicks of the week. Yes or no? Is he coming back? JD Martinez.
I would hope so. Yes.
I'm going to agree on, they're going to find a way. He's coming back for 2018 season. Hold us to it, Sporty Nation.
Yes, hold us to it.
All right, everybody, it's time to wrap up the show, as we always do here on Sporty with Cori and Richie Suave. And it's now time for my dicks of the week. That's right. It was a very, very bad week for sports and people being dicks. So I have 2 of them this week. The first is going to be your Houston Texans owner, Bob McNair, who put out a statement in relation to players kneeling during the national anthem. And he said this during a meeting with owners a couple weeks back, and he was quoted in ESPN, the magazine. He said, quotes, "Players kneeling for the national anthem is like inmates running the prison." How disrespectful to his players and to every single other player around the National Football League to call them inmates running the prison. Not cool, Bob McNair. And you saw on Sunday as well, when the Texans took the field for the first time since then, every single player knelt on the sidelines during the national anthem. So good for them. Number 2, my other dick of the week is going to be Yuli Gurriel of the Houston Astros, who hit a home run in game number 3 of the World Series off of Yu Darvish. And after he got back into the dugout after that home run, he decided to make a racial gesture towards Yu Darvish. I'm not going to replicate it, obviously, for an obvious reason, but he basically mocked Yu Darvish being Asian. So Major League Baseball suspended him for the first 5 games of the 2018 season, which Major League Baseball, grow some balls. You should have suspended him for at least 1 game during this World Series. I'm glad they did something, but it wasn't enough. It was very, very weak on Major League Baseball's part to suspend him for the regular season and not during the World Series. So, Yuli Gurriel and Bob McNair, you are my Dicks of the Week. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on this episode of Sporty with Cori and Richie Suave. We'll talk to you again next week. Good night and good sports, everybody.